All right. All right. What's up, everybody? Working on getting set up here. I had a bit of a setback. I was trying to get my computer ready for the live stream, and my brand new MacBook just died. So I don't know what's up with that. I think I'm supposed to reset the SMC or some business like that, but I don't really know Macs. So I'm learning little by little what I need to do to be successful with that platform. But thank God for Restream. So greetings, everyone. Happy Thursday. Hopefully you are enjoying your day. And I know with the given situation, it's tough, tougher on some than for others. But, you know, it's all good. I'm still blessed. Today, I find myself grilling and chilling. So that's what I'm up to. Got a tri-tip on the grill. So I can't stay with y'all for too long. But I do want to make sure that I am watching the temperature gauge because, you know, even when I grill, it's got to be fancy. It's got to be right. So hopefully the alarm won't go off and bother anybody. But if it does, then I got to roll because I don't want to burn up my meat. So what's going on, Jonathan? Greetings, Anil, random LinkedIn user. I'm not looking at the chat, so I'm still trying to get not getting the MacBook on just threw me off. So is the audio quality okay? Can you hear me? Is the mic too hot? If so, I can back up off it. Y'all gonna help me get this set up right, or at least to look decent. All right. So yeah, let's just, as I fill the time and as I troubleshoot some things, let me just explain why I decided to do this. I personally have a passion for technical interviewing, and it's one of the things that I've come to enjoy. It's weird being on. Sorry, you know, after about almost 20 years in the business, I've been on both sides of the interview table. You know, I've been, I've been doing, internship interviews. I've done behavioral interviews. I've done coding interviews. I've done knowledge-based interviews. And we'll talk a little bit about the difference between all those as I expound on these interview tips. So I've done quite a number of different kinds of interviews. And then I've also, again, conducted interviews for companies and consulted on best practices for how to do it right. And so, it's one of those things where skill and knowledge comes together to meet and to, I think, form this interesting experience where you, in a very short amount of time, have to show what you can do. And, you practice and you prepare and you do all these things. And, sometimes things are clicking well and you get a great question, you know what to do. Other times you hit with the curveball and you're like, I didn't study this. I don't know nothing about this. And you're just trying to figure out how to dig out from out of a bad situation. And so, the stress of it all, the preparation, the success, the failures, all of that coming together for me is just something that's always been interesting to probe and to think about. And I feel like I've gotten better. So I'm getting my own audio back in the mic. But, it's just a great place to see so many things come together. Because I don't know that there are many times throughout my career as a software engineer or as a technologist where, what I know is really put to the test. And my metal is truly tested. So anyway, that's all that. LinkedIn, can you see my video? Because I can't see my own video on LinkedIn. Can y'all see me? I want to make sure that you can. I got my webcam up. I got my lights ready. So all that's cool. But I need to know if I'm on it there. I know my YouTube folks can see me. I think my Facebook folks can see me. So we're all good there. But I want to make sure that I iron out some of these issues before I get started. I might want to make some hand gestures, to explain my point a little bit better. Okay, y'all can't see me on LinkedIn. Sorry about that. I don't know what's going on. If you want to, you can switch over to my YouTube channel. I'll just type the link into the comments, and hopefully I'm just going to trust that this comes through. This is my first time using Restream to broadcast. So I'm just going to type in. All right, so I'm just at amays.me/YouTube. All right, so amaze.me/YouTube, amays.me/YouTube. Or just look for me, Anthony D. Mays, on all the things, and you'll pretty easily find me. So if you're having problems with video on LinkedIn, I'll try to repeat this frequently enough. Just hop over to my YouTube channel. You can see me there. And if you can't see me on YouTube, I don't know what's going on. Now I know I'm on LinkedIn, so that's all that. I'm playing with fire. Like I was ready to go, had my MacBook ready. I was like, I got OBS. I'm about to do the thing, have some visuals going, all that. And well, guess God had a different plan. So it's all good. But nevertheless, yeah, so I just checked YouTube. YouTube looks like it's fine. So if you want to check out video, that's great. You can do that. And I don't know if I'm live on Twitter. Usually I have it set up for Periscope, but if I'm not getting any video there, then that's just too bad. A lot of what I'm going to talk about, I'll try to, again, just audibly call out links and things that you can visit, resources that you want to check out. One resource that's important for you to check out is my website, anthonydmays.com. I've got articles there that you can check out for free, no problem, about my interview experiences in the past and some other things. So you can always go there. Again, that's Anthony D as in Dwayne or diversity. Take your pick. anthonydmays, MAYS.com. You'll find me there. Also, you want to check out morganlatimer.com. Morganlatimer.com is my baby. That is the firm that I started a couple of years ago to help people prepare for interviews at top tech companies. And so I provide free consultations, so you can book time with me. And over 30 minutes, I can figure out if I'm going to be able to be helpful to you or not. So feel free to, again, visit morganlatimer.com. If you want to see me do a live interview, or not a live interview, but a recorded interview where I take on a 45-minute technical question, feel free. And yeah, that's how it is. All right, commenting is turned off on Twitter. Let me see if I can fix that real quick. Thank y'all for your patience. I didn't anticipate having this many problems this fast, but I'm a problem solver. So I see a problem and my instinct is to work on solving it. So I'm gonna try to get the chat stuff going on Twitter or on Periscope and see if we can't iron that out. In the meantime, some of you are probably preparing for interviews. Hopefully, perhaps you are. I know that many companies are still hiring. They may have slowed down hiring as a result of COVID-19, but that's okay. For some of us, that just buys us a little bit more time to think about preparation and to use some of the tips that I'm going to share with you today. So whether you're in process or whether you're looking to interview a year out from now, I got you covered. One of the first mistakes that people make when they come to the interview process is that they don't give themselves enough time to prepare. And that's a huge mistake. You don't want to do that. The interviews at top tech companies are quite a bit different and more intense than at other companies. So I'm talking about the Facebooks, the Amazons, the Twitters, companies at that level. It's a pretty intensive process. Usually they want you coding on a whiteboard if we were doing this in person, or coding in a doc or some kind of other coding tool. The point is that they actually want you to code in the interview, working through a problem for like 45 minutes, an hour, something like that. And it's not that you just get one problem and you're done. Typically, you're getting multiple problems. So you're talking to 4 or 5 different people, maybe 6 different people, and you're trying to figure it out, right? Trying to work through the problem and all that. So the point that I'm making there is that if you haven't interviewed at that level before, you need to give yourself time. Another reason why you need to give yourself time is because typically it takes about you know, anywhere from like 2 weeks. 2 weeks if the computer science fundamentals are still fresh in your mind. So recent college grads, maybe third or fourth year students who are looking to interview. You've just taken your first and second year of computer science study, so that stuff is still fresh. It can, maybe it takes you a couple of weeks. When I went to the interview, through the interview process, one of the bigs, it took me quite a bit more time because I'd been out of school for 6 years at least, and I needed to hit the books. So I've got books on my bookshelf. I'll talk about these a little bit later, but I've got Introduction to Algorithms, which was the college textbook that I used to prepare for learning about algorithms and data structures. I dusted this off and started studying some of the initial chapters there. Some of you, if you have a formal computer science education, may have the algorithm design manual, which is a pretty useful textbook and is in some cases a little more readable. So there's that, and another book that I'm dropping stuff over here, just making a mess. Programming Pearls is a great book, and I know it's kind of hard to see the title here, but Programming Pearls by John Bentley was a super useful book. And this book is really not about explaining individual algorithms and how they work per se, but for me, it was useful to think about the change in mindset. And the first chapter was super useful to me and very helped me to think about the interview in a transformative way. So those are a few books that I use, but I needed to take time to study that and to read through the relevant material and work through that. And so it's not something that you rush into, especially if you've been out of school for a while, or if you don't have a computer science education. Some of us who are going into interviews don't have a computer science education. That's cool. But it means that you have to study a little bit more to get up to speed with algorithms and data structures. It's useful to know that stuff, by the way, because when you're building systems at scale for more than just hundreds or thousands, but hundreds of thousands and millions, when you're building for that scale, you need to understand how to write code efficiently. And algorithms and data structures, a good knowledge of algorithms and data structures, along with a decent understanding of Big O, will help you to build things at scale. So that's important. So we'll talk a little bit more about that down the line. Again, the reminder for you is that you need to take time to prepare. Don't rush into this. A lot of times in the big companies, they'll ask you, how much time you want to take in order to study and prepare. I feel like a month is just a good way to call it. Again, some of you may feel a little more confident in your preparation and you'll, just use a couple of weeks. But I think a month and a half is a good starting point for getting ready and getting liftoff. So, I do help people who are preparing for interviews. Again, I run my own firm, Morgan Latimer Consulting, morganlatimer.com, where I will speak with you for a free consultation to talk about what your interviewing needs are. I don't always talk just to software engineers. Sometimes I talk to students. Sometimes I talk to product managers, aspiring product managers who are looking to get positions and want to pass the technical portion or want to be assessed in the behavioral interview. I also do that as well. So if you are interested in getting a role in tech and you think that you're going to have some kind of a technical assessment, I'm here to help and to provide some mock interviewing so that you know what you're expecting, so that you know what you're getting into. Okay, let me talk about the different kinds of interviews really quickly before sharing just a little bit more information. Then I'll open up some time for questions. There are primarily three kinds of interviews that you'll run into when you are doing interviews in tech. And I'll go from sort of the easiest to the more difficult, or easiest to the most difficult. So the easiest kind of interview I think that you can have is the knowledge-based technical assessment. Now, the knowledge-based technical assessment is where you are asked questions about how some piece of technology works and asked to recall certain facts about them. So you might be asked, how do you declare a singleton in Java? Or you might be asked, what are the key namespaces in the .NET library? You may be asked about what the difference between static and final are, things of that nature. And so these are questions that you can study beforehand. There are tons of lists of questions about programming languages, frameworks, different things like that, platforms. You can study that stuff. You can even get certifications. And then once you have that knowledge, you can generally walk into a knowledge-based interview and succeed pretty easily. Obviously, if you don't study and you're just relying on day-to-day experience, you could run into trouble depending upon the level of experience that you have. So, but I think that knowledge-based assessments are the easiest because, again, you do a little study beforehand and you're pretty much good to go. You know what the questions are going to be, or you can at least get a sense of what the kinds of questions are going to be, and then go on from there. So that's knowledge-based assessments. That's number one. Number two, behavioral interviews. Behavioral interviews are a little more difficult. They're designed to test how you think and behave as an employee, or as a team member, or as a leader. And so they're going to probe questions. They're questions designed to probe into your experience. And the key to behavioral questions is, first of all, understanding your own background and understanding your own contributions, understanding your resume and the experience that folks might ask about, and then understanding the qualities that someone might be looking for in your experience. So if someone is looking at my resume wondering what kind of a leader am I should be thinking about how I can take the experience that I have on my resume and show at various points in my past where I've demonstrated leadership. And to be more specific, where I've either led the work of someone else, or I've owned a specific part of the system and dealt with all the different areas of that system. That's another way of demonstrating leadership. Or it could be that, anytime that there was a problem with a thing, I was the point person for that. I was the knowledgeable expert, the subject matter expert for that thing. So those are ways in which I can demonstrate leadership in some technical capacity. Or it could be just helping to strengthen team cohesion, or working across various teams to make sure that things happened when they needed to. So those are all examples of leadership that, in my experience, I have, and I can speak to in the behavioral interview. So all of that stuff is important. All right. Let me just hold on real quick. So I just reviewed two kinds of interviews, the knowledge-based interview and the behavioral interview. We're going to talk about the coding interview just a second. I want to try to get this Twitter issue resolved because some folks still cannot use that. So I'm just going to mute my volume and then go and do some stuff really quickly. Let me know a couple of folks. Raymond on LinkedIn, I see you. You can't see me. Sorry about that. Working on that. Kendra, thank you for your help in providing the link. Tony, what's up? This is Duran Green. Cool. Lake, good to see you here. CJ, all right. I'm doing too much. Let's just be clear. I'm trying to work through the issues and make sure that y'all are having a decent experience as I'm working through this content. But technical issues happen, and I just work through them one at a time. I am a bug factory, by the way. As a software engineer, I've learned that I spend a majority of my time, if not causing bugs, then fixing the bugs that I've caught. I build stuff from time to time. That's true. I get new features and functionality out the door. That's all good. But boy, having to fix my bugs and issues is, and it doesn't get any easier. I mean, I've been in the game for a while, and I look at some of the code that I've written from a couple of months ago and just want to cry. So it's the struggle is real, and I try to hang in there and do what I can. but that is what it is. Okay. I'm still getting it together. So I'm streaming off of a Chromebook right now. I know a lot of people get very surprised when I talk about all the stuff that I do on my Chromebook, but you know, these Chromebooks are reliable, or at least the one I have is reliable. So I love working off of it when I can. Like I said, I just got a Mac, but my Mac is trying to give up the ghost on me, and I don't know what that's all about. That's kind of frustrating. So I just grab my Chromebook and I'm up and I'm doing my thing and streaming to multiple platforms at the same time. So shout out to Restream for having my back, even though I'm still having a couple of issues on a couple of places. It is what it is. All right. Like I said, I'm going to try to work through the questions that come in. There's a lot of people on the stream. I'm very grateful for each and every one of you being on the stream and participating and providing feedback. For those of you that shared, I really appreciate that as well. You know, I don't take it for granted that you all come and tune in for these things, taking time out of your schedule to listen to me. Hopefully I'm providing you useful information. If I'm not, just tell me and I'll be more than happy to do what I can to help out there. All right. Yeah, I can't figure out how to enable chat on Twitter. So that is what it is. Sorry about that. Actually, it's kind of acting up, but that's Restream's problem. Like I said, my best suggestion for you is if you're having too many issues, you might try jumping on YouTube. I think things are pretty stable there, but I haven't been reading through the comments to figure out whether that's actually true or not. I'm just trying to get through the control panel to make sure that I'm hitting this up right. Okay, so I don't want to go too long without giving you content, so I'm just going to continue. So I talked earlier and suggested that there are 3 types of interviews, one being the knowledge-based interview where you're responsible for recalling basically facts and figures. The second kind being the behavioral interview, and in the behavioral interview, we're talking about being able to really talk about your past experience and bring out of your past experience the qualities that your prospective employer is looking for, right? So pointing to your leadership, your problem-solving ability, things of that nature. All right. Now, the third kind is the technical coding interview. And the technical coding interview is, I think, the most challenging kind of interview. And the reason why it's the most challenging kind of interview is because the kind of knowledge that you need to know, number one, is rooted in like the first and second year of your computer science education, if you have a computer science education. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that you don't necessarily know what kind of question you're going to get, and it can be from a wide variety of different areas. So the breadth of knowledge that you need to know is pretty expansive beyond just the technology and the frameworks and all those things. So there can be a disconnect between the kinds of questions that you would be asked in a coding interview versus the kind of stuff that you might be doing from your day-to-day. So that's the second reason why I find it to be difficult. The third reason why I find it to be difficult, the technical coding interview to be difficult, is because you're working collaboratively with another person. And so in order for you to get to the right answer or to the optimal solution, you have to be good about communicating with the person who is interviewing you, and make sure that you're asking the right questions. You need to make sure that you're speaking clearly and that you can understand them clearly, that you're taking notes, as it were, to the things that they're asking you to do. And so there's a bit of I like to being a consultant, and I've been a consultant for a few years of my career. And as a consultant, I had to do a very good job of figuring out, okay, what does the customer want? And how do I take what they want and turn it into what they need? And customers don't tell you everything that they want. They don't tell you everything that they think that they need. And you have to probe and understand and then tie the right technical solutions to what they're trying to do. And there's an aspect of that that occurs in the technical coding interview. So, you know, I know that there is a lot of people who think that if I just study cracking the coding interview, oh, you know, I may show up on Restream. Anyway, sorry. There's a thing showing on the screen. I don't know how to get it off. What happens if I do that? Hey, look at that. Okay. I think I'm starting to, oh, there it is. All right. I'm learning something new. So there's a lot of people that think like, if I just study cracking the coding interview and do 1,000 leak code questions, I'll be straight. Okay. Now be honest. How many of you think that just studying leak code questions is enough to do well in the coding interview, right? You ain't got a lot to kick it. Don't worry. I totally get it, right? There's a lot of you are studying on leak code or pulling questions from wherever and thinking like, if I just study 1,000 of those, then I should be fine. And while leak code is important, right? I'm not going to knock leak code or some of those other services where you can, hacker rank, all that stuff. Those are all great resources. Very glad that they exist. But I'm going to tell you right now that studying that stuff alone isn't going to cut it. Okay. Relying on leak code, relying on hacker rank, all this stuff. Again, it's helpful for exercising your algorithms and data structures knowledge, but it's not enough. And the reason is, and I want just think about it with me, right? If studying leak code problems were enough, then when you go into these big companies to interview, they would just give you a leak code problem, walk away, and then expect you to submit your answer in like 45 minutes to an hour, right? If that's all the interview is, then why even have somebody in the room, right? And the reason why they don't do that, or at least in my experience, I haven't really heard of that, is that the interview process is designed, it's not a knowledge-based interview, right? Technical coding interviews at big tech companies, they aren't knowledge interviews, or at least not knowledge interviews alone. They're not behavioral interviews alone either. They're this combination of both of those things. And in order for you to succeed, you have to be able to work with a real human being to solve a problem. So that's what you need to be thinking about is how to do that. I often ask my candidates and my clients as I work with them through Morgan Latimer Consulting, I ask them, what do you think that you're supposed to get? What do you think that the interviewer wants you to do in the interview to be successful, right? What do you think that they're looking for? Why do you think that companies interview the way that they do? And it's not surprising that many people that I talk to don't really have an answer for that, right? Many of you are thinking like, oh, they just want to know that you know algorithms. Yeah, that's true. They want to know that you know data structures. That's also true, right? They want you to know Big O. That's fine. But it's not just those things. As a matter of fact, I think there's something even more important that these companies are looking for. And what they're looking for is problem-solving ability. Okay, problem-solving ability. Now, I'm going to just put a kickstand right there real quick. And let me just address this. This is anthonydmays. I am not representing any company other than my own. All right, so let me just, any thoughts or opinions that I share on this live stream are my own, right? So don't get me fired talking about Anthony said and he was speaking on behalf of such and such. Nah, we ain't rolling like that, right? This is just me talking to y'all, trying to share useful information. So don't get me in trouble, all right? It's important for me to mention that because I don't want y'all to take anything that I'm saying out of context. Everything that I'm sharing with you is based upon my own personal experience and not based upon anything official that I've received or been told. So it's just important to mention that, all right? But with all of that, let me just be clear about that. But then the other part of it is, I've got, again, 20 years of experience in this industry on both sides of the table as an interviewer and as an interviewee. So that's why I'm bringing you what I'm bringing, and hopefully you find it useful. But know that your mileage may vary a little bit, right? I've got a certain way that I like to go through technical interviews, and I'm very open about sharing what that strategy is. You may take that and amend it a little bit or work with it a little bit, and that's perfectly fine. You may get a different kind of interview experience than I had. That's all good. So I just want to lay all that out before I continue and move on here. Okay, so let's talk about problem solving. I guarantee you, and I'm like 90% sure that this is going to be the case, that if I asked you how you engage in the problem solving process, and if I were to ask you to describe that in 60 seconds, I do this for everybody. I say, look, describe your problem solving process in 60 seconds. And I ask you if you can do this. Most of you wouldn't be able to do it. Right? Even right now, you're probably scratching your head like, oh, I don't know. I ask questions, right? Think about it a little bit, try to figure out, some ways that I can solve the problem. Maybe I'll look it up on Google or, Bing, all that stuff. Try to check out some books, maybe ask somebody, and then I'll try something. If that doesn't work, I'll try something else. If that doesn't work, I'll try something else, right? It's generally what I hear. And, again, there are aspects of that are important and that you need to do. You need to do research when you're solving a problem. You may need to talk to people when you're trying to solve a problem. You do need to ask questions when you're trying to solve a problem. So I'm not knocking any of that. That's all important. But I think that there is a way to systematically work through pretty much any problem that you encounter. And I'm not just talking about technical interviewing. I'm talking about problems that you deal with in life. I think that there's a framework, or at least in my observation, I've noticed that good problem solvers consistently do the same things, right? Particularly in the tech space. They go through a very similar process. They may do it in a slightly different order or using different methods, but there's 6 things that I've landed on that I believe are important for the problem solving process. And I've talked about it a number of times. I wrote about it in an article where I talked about those 6 things. I think it's titled Interviewing in Google. Here are 6 things you absolutely need to do for your interview, something like that. You can find it at anthonydmays.com. So I talk about that 6-step problem solving process. And, not everybody takes me seriously when I talk about those 6 steps, but those that do are very successful. And a lot of the coaching that I do through Morgan Latimer Consulting is about helping people to really own those 6 steps, make them their own, and then work them out in the technical interview or in the system design interview or in other kinds of interviews. So it's very important that you dial that in. I came up with a video at morganlatimer.com, a video course. It's 50 minutes long, where I talk about, among other things, those 6 steps. And so if you're interested, morganlatimer.com, Technical Interviewing 101 is just a quick, short course that explains why those 6 steps are important and how you incorporate those 6 steps into your study plan and into your regimen. So if you haven't seen that, check out morganlatimer.com, check out the video, and I think that it will be very helpful to you. And like I say, you can always book a free consultation with me where we can talk about specifically your interviewing situation, right? And how I might be able to help you through a series of mock interviews. So there's that. Getting back to the problem solving process, I'm just going to share with you the 6 things that I think that you need to be doing when you're doing technical interviewing in this 6-step process. So I'm just going to give it to you right now, which is probably foolish for me to do, but whatever. I think now's the time to help. I think this is going to be very helpful. So I want you all to pay attention. And if you need to take notes, take notes. So anyway, number 1, you need to, when you encounter a technical interview question, repeat the question out loud. Repeat the question out loud. You may think, Anthony, what's the point of repeating the question out loud? The importance of repeating the question out loud is this. It gives you, number 1, the opportunity to take some time to think, right? So as soon as you hear some kind of a technical question, you're not going to know what to do within the first 5 or 10 seconds, okay? I'm pretty sure of that. And the last thing that you want to do is sit there looking stupid silently for a long amount of time without doing something. And so the first thing that I recommend that you do is just repeat the question out loud. Now, when you repeat the question out loud, you want to repeat it in your own words. And the reason why you want to do that is because you want to sort of play around with what the question is and make sure that you understand its limits. And by repeating the question out loud, you start to do that. And what will happen is if you've said something wrong, your interviewer can correct you and say, hey, you said this, but that's not what I said. What I said was this. Or they may say, you forgot to mention this really important constraint. Let me clarify that for you. So by repeating the question, you lock in with your interviewer very early in the process so that you're not going in separate directions without knowing it. So there's that aspect of it. And then lastly, I don't know if any of you have ever heard of Abduct Debugging. It's not a term that I invented, but Abduct Debugging is basically when you talk to yourself as you're thinking through a problem. And that by doing so, sometimes you see things that you might not have noticed before because you were just talking to yourself. So it comes from, I think, an engineer who was talking to a little rubber ducky that they had on their desk. And in talking to the rubber duck, they were able to solve, at least figure out what they needed to do in their next step. If you've ever asked a question and you answered the question before you finished asking it, you might benefit just from repeating the question out loud. All right, so that's first thing. Second thing, the second thing that you need to do is clarify your assumptions. And there's two ways that you can do that. A, you explicitly state what your assumptions are, and B, you ask questions. Okay, so pretty easy. The hard part of checking your assumptions is knowing that you're making assumptions, right? So that's right, rubber duck debugging. Thank you, Sam, for throwing that in there. I'm playing around with the comments feature, so thanks for throwing that out there and helping the community out. So rubber duck debugging is about, sorry, that's not what I was talking about. Clarifying your assumptions. Clarifying your assumptions is about, number one, acknowledging your assumptions and then addressing them by way of asking questions and stating them. So the hardest part of that is just knowing that you're making assumptions. If I say to you, sort an array, the first thing you're probably going to think of is an array of integers. I didn't say anything about an array of integers. Typically, you just assume that when you're sorting an array, it's got numbers, or you may assume that they're strings. One of the first things you want to do when you're checking your assumptions is ask, okay, what's the data type? Does it fit in memory? Are there mixed types? Are there decimal values? Things of that nature. How big will it be? Is there anything special about patterns in the array? Is it sorted? Is it not sorted? Things like that. And so you want to ask those questions and get into the you want to get into those assumptions, address them, and then confront them, and take notes as you confirm assumptions. So let's say that your interviewer tells you you're dealing with sorting an array of numbers in reverse order. Write that down somewhere. Okay. Now, if you're doing, I realize that much of the interviewing that's happening right now is remote. So normally, when you're invited to an on-site interview at a company, you're going to go into a room with another engineer on a whiteboard and work through a technical problem. So you can write notes on the whiteboard, you're going to write code on the whiteboard and all that stuff. And interestingly enough, when people are doing phone screens, and usually with the phone screen, you're using some kind of a collaborative editing tool. It's not going to be a full IDE probably, but something like a word processor or some other shared collaboration tool, maybe even a shared whiteboard. But I've noticed that when people are doing sort of the remote interviewing stuff, they don't tend to write as many notes, or they don't write any notes at all for some reason. And that's a huge mistake. You should be writing notes and documenting what you're doing. And I think that step 2 in the problem solving process, where you're checking your assumptions, you want to do that. You want to actually take notes on the assumptions that you've confirmed and other things, right, as you're going along. Okay, so that's step 2. I'm going too slow. I need to speed this up. Step 3, work through a real example, right? And I'd also say work through a visual example. So you're going to come up with some sample input, and you're going to figure out what the expected output is for that corresponding sample input. And you're going to ask your interviewer, does this look right? Now, I always recommend that you actually draw the data structure that you're working with, or whatever that input is supposed to look like. So if you're dealing with a tree, draw a tree. You're dealing with an array, draw an array. If you're dealing with a linked list, draw the linked list and the nodes. And you may even drawing the null terminator. That's all fine. But the point is that you want to draw something and use realistic data. So one of the things that you may be assessed on is how well you do testing, because at least for the big companies I know of, unit testing is a really important part of the culture typically. So coming up with test cases is important. As you're studying leak code problems and different kinds of technical questions like that, you want to make sure that you can identify test cases and understand what that should look like. And then you want to use those test cases to, again, illustrate that you understand the problem. So if I get an array that looks like this, by the time I sort it, it should look like this. Do I have that right? Okay. So step 3, use that example. The great thing about using examples is that you can save that off for later when you actually go through and test the code that you've implemented. Or you can call back to it as you're writing code, right? To think about, okay, well, if I get an array that looks like this and I'm setting my my current value here, then you can do all that. So that's step 3, use an example. Between steps 1 through 3, you should have a good understanding of the problem that you need to solve. So now it's time for step 4, which is brainstorming. Now, all the work that you've done on studying algorithms and data structures in Big O, all of that comes to a head in the brainstorming step. Okay, that's what it's there for. It's impossible to brainstorm if you don't know what tools you're going to use. Okay, and so all the studying that you're doing in that first and second year of algorithms and data structures is about being ready to brainstorm, so that not only will you come up with a naive solution, and the naive solution is going to be a simple, probably the first one that you come up with. That's all good. You can come up with a naive solution. You may end up implementing the naive solution, whatever that is. It's going to be slow. It's going to be ugly, but whatever, it works. So you don't want to just stop there, though. You want to actually think about 1 or 2 other ways that you can solve the problem. Okay, 1 or 2 other ways that you can solve the problem. And you're not going to be able to do that if you don't know your algorithms and data structures well. Okay, now when I mean know your algorithms and data structures well, I don't mean you need to memorize every line of code of how to implement each one. That's not the point. Otherwise, we would just give you a knowledge-based assessment where you're asked to write quicksort from memory, right? That's not the point. The point is, do you understand, number 1, how those algorithms work in general, and 2, when you would use them, right? When you would use this particular data structure versus another data structure to achieve some purpose. That's really important when you're brainstorming, because if you don't know your algorithms and data structures, you're going to try to use the wrong data structure to solve a problem, and it's going to be not optimal or even cause more problems for you. So that's what the brainstorming part is. If you don't take away anything else, just know that as you're working through the solution, before you write a line of code, before you implement any solution, you just need to stop and think about what are the ways that you can solve this problem. Okay, that's that. Once you have identified the ways that you can solve the problem, you want to pick one and then implement it. All right, now you're more than welcome to probably ask your interviewer, like, I've come up with 3 ways of solving this problem. I think option 2 looks good. What do you think? And they can say, sure, go ahead and implement number 2. Or they may say, you know what, I want to see you implement option 3. Okay. If they tell you that, that is useful feedback. They're trying to help you out, right? So, but you can ask, like, okay, I've got 3 ways of solving this problem. Is it, I'm thinking about doing number 1. Is that cool, right? So that's also fine. All right. So once you know what you're going to solve, step 5 is you're going to actually implement it. And this should be the easiest part of the interview, right? You should know your Java, C++, JavaScript, Python, whatever, easy. And you should be able to implement your solution. A lot of people ask me, like, what language should I use to code in? Just pick a popular one, one that's well-known, and use it. For many companies, they don't really care if you are a C# guru versus a Java guru versus a C++ guru, unless the position is asking for it. But a lot of companies are looking for generalists. So just pick a language and go with it. Stay away from SQL, probably, unless you're applying specifically for a position that requires strong SQL skills. Like, don't try to, just don't. Or it's not a good idea. All right. If you're interviewing for like the general suite positions or SDE positions or whatever, software engineering tests, you're going to use the the commonly well-known languages. All right, so that's step 5. Oh, by the way, you're not going to get an IDE, so don't practice with an IDE. The only time that you practice with an IDE is when you're going to take code that you wrote out by hand on paper on a whiteboard. You're going to take that into your IDE, compile, and make sure that that everything compiles cleanly. And if you can do that without an IDE, great. Do it without an IDE. You're not probably going to get an IDE in the interview, so don't practice with it because there's too many ways that you can rely on the feature functionality there and not really understand what you're doing in the coding. So step 5, code it up. You should know code is very easily, you should be studying code enough every day, writing in that language so that you don't have to think about writing what you're thinking about. You can just think it up and then write it in code, easy. Step 6, test your code. Always test your code. Don't be dumb. You don't ever write code the first time perfectly, or very rarely do you ever. And you're probably not going to do it in an interview because it's super stressful. So test your code, all right? Check yourself before you wreck yourself. And like I said, if you, in step 3, came up with your example, you can use that to run through a test of your code. Line by line, make sure that your if statements look good, your conditionals, that you don't have off by ones, that you are overflowing a data type or variable, something like that. Just do it, okay? Even if you don't know how to test your code, pretend like you're testing your code, so at least your interviewer can write down that you care about that. Those are the 6 steps. And like I said, it's very important that you practice your problem solving. You can take my 6-step problem solving approach if you wish. I think that it has been very successful for people that take it seriously. For people who don't take it seriously, well, you got more problems than just the 6 steps, okay? So if you take it seriously, it will help you. And anytime you're practicing a technical question, you want to run through those 6 steps. If you do this, then when you go into the interview room, you know exactly what you're going to do. You're going to do step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's what you're going to do. You don't have to worry about like, okay, how am I going to, some of y'all problem solve just based upon the direction that the wind is blowing and what you ate for dinner last night. Okay. You don't want to do that. You want to know what you're going to do and how you're going to move through the problem, because if you do it enough, then people start to pick up on the pattern and just like, oh, this person is a disciplined problem solver, because across 4 or 5 different interviews, they seem to do the same kinds of things that good problem solvers do. Okay. So that's all of that. All right. Enough of beating that into the ground. Let's get to some questions. I want to try to jump into this a bit and get to questions that are in the chat. Again, I want to thank you all for joining me. You didn't have to spend time with me. Hopefully this is helping you. And if it's not, please do hit me up on the side and let me know, because I want to be helpful. Somebody asked about remote work. And I just want to talk a little. So I've talked about how to prepare for tech company for interviews with top tech companies like Google, Amazon, Facebook, whatever the big 4 is now. I don't know, but I've talked about that. So those 6 steps will help you there. Even if you're doing the software engineer and test interview, it'll help you with that too. All right, well, if we're talking about remote work. I've been obviously remote working for the past couple of months, as many of you have been. I really thank God that I'm able to continue working and doing my job and being effective at it and getting paid. I know that a lot of people have lost their jobs or are in the process of figuring out whether they're going to have a job over the next month or so. And my heart goes out for them. If you've been impacted by that, again, part of the reason why I'm doing this live stream is because I want you to have the tools that are going to help you to be successful in your future endeavors as you're attempting to find work. So please do know that I'm with you in this and wanting to be as helpful as I hopefully can be. But remote work is, nothing really changes for me. I've been able to do all the same stuff. When I'm at work, I usually work not from my desk, but from the cafe or from outdoors or from wherever, from a couch or wherever. So I'm used to working remotely, as it were. And nothing really changes there. When it comes specifically to the interview process, the only thing that's different about interviewing remotely is that you're working with a collaborative editor, something that's probably text-based, so you don't get to draw, or it's harder to draw than it probably should be. So if you're doing something like a systems design interview and trying to make a diagram, good luck with that. And I don't know if there's a lot of good collaborative whiteboarding tools out there. There's very few that I know of. The only one actually that I can think of off the top of my head is the one that Google makes. What's the name of that app? I can't even remember. But Google has a digital whiteboard thing, and that can be useful for collaborative editing and collaborative drawing. But again, like, I have a computer with a touchscreen and I can use a stylus on it, so that makes it easier. But if you're having to use a mouse, it's just not ideal. And sometimes the kinds of questions that you can be asked, it can be a little bit hard. So for instance, let's say that you're asked a question about trees. Well, it's kind of hard to diagram a tree just using text and characters. So those get to be a little challenging. You want to practice beforehand, designing different kinds of algorithms visually in a doc or something like that. Also, if you're using a word processor, get familiar with the settings. You want to turn off things like auto capitalization, auto, spell check. You probably want to turn that off. Things like that, smart quotes, that stuff can be annoying. There's sometimes indentation features, just turn that stuff off because it'll like capitalize things you don't want it to, or when you're trying to make tab breaks and stuff to indent your code, sometimes that gets in the way. So just play around with the settings, figure out what tool the company is using, and just investigate how you can configure the settings for coding in that tool. Okay. This is probably one of the reasons why having a collaborative coding environment is probably useful, because you can get at least some of those niceties without getting auto-completion and IntelliSense. Okay. So that's a little bit there. Again, if you know the 6 steps, you're going to use the same 6 steps when you're doing a remote phone interview versus when you're doing an on-site versus all that stuff. All right. So it's going to be the same process. Okay. Would I recommend doing, so CJ asks on YouTube, would you recommend doing the current virtual hiring loops at big end companies or wait until in-person on-sites return? I don't know that they're going to be substantially different between one or the other. Typically, the kind of problem that you'd be asked in an on-site is the same kind of problem that you'd be asked in a phone screen or in a remote interview. So I would do it. Just go for it. Yeah, that's what I'd recommend, because you're going to have to do them anyway, at least once. So why not? And again, I think that doing remote questions, like if I were an interviewer at one of these companies, I know that interviewing remotely using a collaborative tool isn't always the best experience. And so I may even tend to ask questions that not that they're easier, but that it may be easier to execute certain parts of the question if I were doing it remotely. So again, take that with a grain of salt. I mean, I'm not speaking as a phone interviewing expert. It's just, I'm telling you what I would do if I were conducting interviews that way. All right. Cool. I see somebody. Yeah, I got my Israel Jimenez. What's up? Yeah, I got my UC Irvine shirt on. It's just what I dug out the drawer today. So zot for my anteaters on the call. Okay. Let's see. What kind of Chromebook do I have? I have the Samsung Chromebook Pro. Looks like this. So, yep. There's the Morgan Latimer logo. Oh, you can't even see. There it is. There's the Morgan Latimer logo. But anyway, I have 2 of these because I broke one after dropping it. I broke the screen, so I had to get another one. Anyway, enough of that. Let me get to your interviewing questions. I only got a couple of minutes more with y'all, and my meat is at 126 degrees right now. I'm having a Santa Maria tri-tip. So, and I have a Traeger. I like to smoke in that bad boy as much as I can. That's one upside to quarantine, is I get to grill like every day. Okay. Someone asked this. I've got a break in my career right now. What can I do to get a call for interviews? I've addressed this before, and I'm going to tell you again the secret to getting calls from top tech companies for interviews. Fix your crazy resume, okay? Because most of y'all on the call have horrible resumes. They're really bad, and you think that someone's going to put in the work to reverse engineer your resume when they are not. So go fix your dumb resume because it's probably bad, and you need to fix it, right? You need to include more measurable statistics. You need to speak to your impact. If you're writing your resume and it sounds like a job description, you've done it wrong. So go fix your resume. Go put the numbers in there. Go put the measurable stats. Go talk about how you improve performance by X% or reduced bugs by this much, or increase user satisfaction from 4.5 stars to 5 stars, something like that. But if you tell me that at your last job you coded in JavaScript and Python and built a web app and that's it, I'm going to ignore you. Now, I'm not saying that your resumes come to me and I make those kinds of decisions. I'm just saying that many of the reasons why you're not getting a call back is because you're not talking in terms of impact, measurable, quantifiable impact, and putting that on your resume. And some of y'all have 10-page resumes that don't say nothing. So I'm telling it to you tough because y'all have some bad resumes. You need to fix it. I used to do resume reviews, but then I stopped because I ended up saying the same things over and over and over again. All right, outside of interviewing, what advice do you have for someone that just wants to become a better full stack developer overall? School, online courses, past and personal, or nonprofit projects? Thanks. Thank you so much, Chanel Williams, for sharing that question. Here's what so number one, it depends on your learning style. Some people need to have someone talking to their face in order to learn information and get it in. So if you prefer lectures, online courses are the way to go. Where you're held accountable for certain learning objectives, and you may even have quizzes and tests. So if school is for you, that's cool. Boot camps, great. I am not that way. I do not like people lecturing me. It is not terribly effective. I would rather read the content or watch a video, skipping through it mostly, and then go and build the thing myself. And so a lot of what I've learned over time has come from me working with the technology with my own bare hands, trying to solve problems and all this stuff. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day about systems design questions and how to prepare for those. And I suggested, like, you can go get a Google Cloud account or an Amazon AWS account, play around with a couple of micro instances, play around with some virtual machines, virtual networking, try to build a scalable system, go follow a tutorial somewhere. You can, spend a few hours spinning up a web front end and databases and getting that load balanced using tutorials specifically for AWS, Google Cloud, or any of those other platforms. And you can start understanding these concepts around what it means to build a scalable distributed system. And it's not even that much of an investment of time or money for that matter. So, for me, I think that you want to actually build stuff. And a lot of you have that problem, right? Like, you go to school, you go to boot camp, you're just like, okay, I'm ready to get a job now. Like, no, you're not. You need to actually build stuff, and you need to show that you know how to put to work what you've been learning. I would, if it were me trying to hire somebody, and I'm going to pay you $100,000 or more a year to do something, $200,000, whatever. I don't care about what you can do. I don't care what you think you can do. I care about what you have done and what you've built and the measurable results of that work. So me personally, I'm like, you just need to do something. You need to put that knowledge to work and build something, put it in the app store, even if it only makes $1, whatever. It made $1 more than what it makes for most people, because most people don't even try. So build something and put it out there. All right. Again, nonprofit projects, I think that's a great idea. Startups, internships, there's so many options. There's no excuse for someone working in computers not to have some tangible experience, some artifacts of their work posted on GitHub or something like that and available. So I'm just telling you what it is, so that you understand that this industry, this career is about doing and building and showing what you built and putting that out there. Even if it's not complete, that's all right. Just keep working on it iteratively and it'll get there. Okay. Ouch, Samuel says. Maybe that was because of the interview advice. I don't know. Hopefully y'all not throwing shade at each other. How did I measure my progress in preparing for the technical interview? My goal was to solve any or most technical questions within 30 minutes by myself. I gave myself 30 minutes because in real life, under stress, that gives me 15 minutes of buffer to just wig out and be crazy and then finally get my mind right to solve the problem. Plus, in a real interview, you're talking with someone. So if I'm practicing by myself, I don't have to worry about asking somebody else questions. This is the other problem with just studying LeetCode. Again, not to knock LeetCode, great platform, not to knock HackerRank, great place to get sample questions and coding competitions and all that jazz. But the interview is not a coding competition, right? Your job is to work collaboratively with this other person so that the other person understands that if they were to add you to the team, that you'd be able to work well with everybody else. So when you're solving problems by yourself, I try to get it done in 30 minutes. And that's 30 minutes to an optimal solution, not to a naive solution. 30 minutes to an optimal solution, right? Until I get to that point consistently, I'm studying and working hard every day to make progress, right? As I mentioned a lot, I started off taking an hour and a half to get to the optimal, to not even get to the optimal solution, just to get to a solution for some of these coding problems. And with practice over like a month and a half, I got down from an hour and a half to 30 minutes. So you can do it. It just takes time and practice, right? So give yourself the time to practice and get better and you'll be fine. Let's see. What else can I quit? What's my take on enrolling in a master's program online versus in person? I don't know. I was not interested in getting a master's degree. I just wanted to get a job because I was poor and broke and needed it to get somewhere. So for me, it was neither. I like online formats. Even when, again, I was at UCI, I would go and study the PowerPoint slides more than I would attend lecture, which I say to my shame because I should have worked harder. But you know, I think if I had the option, I would have gone online because it's just more convenient and get some of the other nonsense out of the way. And you can find some decent programs. However, there's a lot of online schools that will take advantage of you. So you really want to do your homework when it comes to online schools and make sure that you're getting the right value out of it. So, but that's just a personal preference. Some people need to, you know, get their butts into a seat in a classroom to learn. Plus, that's a great way for you to build your network. When you're actually attending classes with other people, you can talk to them after class, you can talk to the professor, build relationships. Harder to do that in an online program. And part of the, I think, big purpose for getting a master's degree in the first place is to build that network of connections and build that network of people. It's not just the content, if that makes sense. Okay. So that's what I am, that's what I'm going to do. All right. Let's see. Prep is great for practicing with other people. I have not used Prep myself. That's cool. You know, again, platforms like Prep, LeetCode, HackerRank, they're all great. Definitely use them. Just put them in their proper place. I don't know the quality of interviewers that you get out of Prep. I don't know if they're just other people who are doing interviews like you are or not. One of the things I talk about when I'm talking with prospective clients is you can interview with anybody as you're studying and preparing. I practiced with my wife, and she was the one that I would talk to. And she didn't know anything about coding, anything about technical interviewing. She would just tell me if I sounded like I was, like I knew what I was talking about and if I smiled enough. So that's what she was good for. Or at least from a technical interviewing perspective. Let me not get in trouble. So I could talk to another developer, engineer, whatever. That's all good. One of the reasons why I think that it's valuable for you to work specifically with me is because 20 years experience on both sides of the interviewing table. And so I'm trained to look at and analyze every aspect of how you perform in an interview, from the kinds of questions that you ask to the kinds of algorithms that you choose, data structures, how you implemented your code, whether you miss curly braces, all that stuff, right? And so when you're working with me and morganlatimer.com, that's the kind of feedback you're getting. And I really care about my candidates and making sure that they succeed. So, that's why I hardly recommend Morgan Latimer if you haven't thought about doing mock interviews with me. That being said, if you decide not to work with me, work with somebody, because I think it's important for you to have that person-to-person interaction as you're preparing for interviews at top tech companies. It's going to be very important. It will help you not feel nervous as you're going through the process, because some of you feel very nervous about writing code in front of other people. And the only way to knock that off is by practicing with other people and getting more comfortable conveying your thoughts, asking questions, thinking out loud, and all of that stuff. I could talk about diversity culture at night. I won't do it today because my beef is almost done on the grill, and I think that's another discussion. Do I know people who have transitioned from desktop engineering roles to software developer roles? Not specifically, but I know people who have transitioned from politics into software development and project management. I've known people who have transitioned from HR into a software development role. I've known people who have gone from software development to product management. The great thing about working in tech is that there's so much flexibility, not just within each role, but in how you transition between roles. If you are a strong self-starter and you are willing to learn, you can get to a lot of places in tech and in a lot of different positions. You just need to have a plan for how you're going to make that transition, talk to people who are in the role that you want to be in, and work with that. Oh, my homeboy Yakai is on. That's my teammate, y'all. I'm just going to put him on blast real quick. Thanks for joining and for checking out this live stream. Okay, I think that I'm just going to spend like 4 more minutes with y'all and then I'm out of here because I've got to go support my family and be there with them. I love this work from home stuff and seeing them every day. My kids are having classes. They're homeschooled normally anyway, and so it's really pretty normal around here for us. But they have their live streams of their own, and all I mean is I like to go and disrupt them and try to make them laugh because that's fun. Talk about past experience writing tests or testing infrastructure. No, I wish I had time to do that. Go Google it. Go Google it, read some articles, you'll be fine. Okay. There's different testing methodology. Sorry. So I'll just quickly share arrange, act, assert is a pattern that I like to use when thinking through how I'm going to write a unit test. Unit test is not the same as an integration test. Integration test is not the same as a smoke test. Learn the different types, be prepared to speak to that. And it just helps you. And none of us, I think, are testing our stuff the way that we ought to be. And I feel particularly guilty of that recently, but something to think about that. How do I handle failure? Horribly at first. That's how I handle failure. I handle failure horribly at first. And then after some point, I remember number one, I've been through worse. And 2, 20 years in the game and I still got my job. So I can't be that bad. I mean, I may be bad, but I ain't that bad. I got to Google, so, whatever. You can't tell me nothing now. I gotta keep my pride in check. It's about humility. There are a lot of people that help me out. And sometimes when I'm not dealing with failure well, it's because I don't have a proper estimation of myself. I make mistakes. I write bad code. I do things that I don't like, and that's just part of the process. I ask forgiveness where needed and work on improving what I need to do and just getting better. So, for me, it's about the process of continually being open and willing to learn through this process. I'll never arrive. And if I ever arrive, I'm changing the whole situation. Because the thing that I love about what I do even in technical interviewing, even in software development, even as a musician, is that I want to get better at it, and I want to improve and learn new things. And so, you know, I just saw, thank you, that you were elaborating on, you know, I'll elaborate. Like, if you fail in the interview, one of the things that you need to know about interviews, specifically at big tech companies, is that you can try again multiple times and it doesn't count against you. So, you know, when your interviewer is talking to you about a question, they don't know how many times you've necessarily been through the interview process or what kind of questions you had and this and that and the other. They may not always know all those details. So I know people that have gotten in on their second try, people that have gotten on their third try, people that have gotten on their fourth try, people that have gotten on their fifth try. Yes, people that have gotten on their sixth try. They had the tenacity to keep working hard and keep studying. What do you do when you're done with your last interview of the day? Keep studying, keep trying to get better. You know, and that's one of the other reasons why I like doing technical interview coaching, is because I get to maintain a familiarity with algorithms and data structures, and that helps me just as a regular engineer to keep those things in mind and to use those skills and to not let them go, not be too old. So anyway, that's all that. I'm about to go. Thank you all for joining me. Hopefully I got to most of the questions that you wanted to answer. I always say that this is an AMA, and then I spend like 45 minutes talking and then leaving just 15 minutes for questions. I need to figure out a better way to do this, but I think that the information is important and helpful. If you want to get in touch, I'm at Anthony D. Mays on all the things. Visit anthonydmays.com to check out my free articles. If you think you might be interested in mock interviews with me, you can book a free consultation at morganlatimer.com. And we can talk through your specific situation and talk about how I might be able to help with mock interviews, and just providing you that helpful feedback that you can incorporate into your practice regimen as you're getting ready for tech interviews. Even if you're doing product management and you want me to run you through behavioral interviews or IT interviews or whatever, just let me know. I may be able to help you out, but it all starts with that conversation. If you want to see me go through a 45-minute interview question, also morganlatimer.com is the first video at the top where I just walk through that, and you can see me using those 6 steps that I mentioned earlier. So anyway, thank you all for joining me. I appreciate you. Again, hopefully this was helpful. Holla at a brother. And in the meantime, I'm going to go and enjoy a delicious tri-tip dinner. Peace.